There we go.
So click when he follows.
Yep.
Retreat.
Yep. So he gets a click and a treat, and then you retreat, and he gets another click and a treat, and then you go back to doing it again. There we go. And what I'm going to do is have you scatter a little bit, and then we're going to redirect him back onto his mat and do some of the relaxation protocol. You gonna nap here?
No.
Okay.
Cody, sit. Good boy.
Like I got it.
Start with 5 seconds, you think?
Yep. Because it's a new environment with a different level of distraction. So we might even have to back it up to like 2 or 3 seconds for reinforcement.
Yes. Good boy, Cody. Good job.
Hey, Jake.
Freaking Jake.
He does, but it's too high up for him to fall to jump up.
Good boy. Good job.
Like I got this. This is good.
Shockingly. Yes. Goody. Good boy. Yes. Itch. Today he actually got a hold of my mom because she came over and she's in the house for a while just hanging out, and then what's been happening sometimes is if we open the front door, sometimes there are barn cats that hang out outside,
Right.
and if he gets sight of them, he will do his I'm gonna rip somebody's face off bark.
Right.
And then tries to run.
Okay.
And then so what we usually have to do is anytime, say I'm still in the house and Chris leaves to go somewhere, or opposite, we make
Right.
him sit down on a mat that's away from the door so that he can't see outside, and we tell him
Right.
to stay. But she was leaving and I was holding him because he looked a little bit like interested
Right.
in something that's outside, and he started barking and she was standing in front of him, and she turned because I guess she didn't realize that he was like upset at something.
Right.
And she put her arm out and he grabbed onto her jacket,
Okay.
and but he didn't, really get her or any blood
Right.
or anything like that. So then I was like, go, go, go. Cause I had to close the door because I knew that if I held on to him any longer, he was going to turn and get my arm,
So I think what we should do is we should add, do you have any like thick rope toys?
Yes. But usually those aren't his favorite. It's like they're too heavy for him or something.
Okay. What about getting like, that chunky yarn?
Yes.
So like that's that really thick plush yarn, getting
Yeah, I
that
actually
and just
have some of
making
that.
So I think if we make like a bunch of figure eights until we have like a chunky loop, and then go over the middle over and over and over again, and then tie it up. So we basically have something big that he can get onto that's a little bit more squishy, but also allows us to pull on it and not necessarily give him like a ball or something that's just a little bit easier to maneuver and bite down on, so that he's engaging with that and not redirecting onto people.
So at what point would you like try to give that to him in that process of like leaving the house? And
I would probably, before the door even opens, try to engage him and putting his mouth on it. And then when the door is opened and we're dealing with it, he already has it in his mouth. So he can bite down on it, shake onto it, whatever he needs to do, but he's not potentially redirecting onto us. Because the alternative to that is going to be like handfuls of like hot dogs or something scattered on the ground right there.
okay. Would you say though that like in the situation where we've been having him sit and stay, is that best so that he's not even seeing out the door, or is it better to have it so that he sees out and then redirect on the toy that you're saying?
I'm gonna answer that really quick. I have to answer this phone call. Give me 1 second.
Okay, sure. Hey, sit down. I think that they're probably on their way back. And they'll be there for a few seconds unloading that. So listen, if something happens and you're pulling it back, don't come through this way, because yeah.
All right. We had a guy coming to give us an estimate to fix our roof on the new house. And so Israel wasn't there yet. I'm like, we're like 10 minutes away. I don't understand how he's not there yet. Jake, come here. I was saying something, you said,
Oh, I was saying, like, is it better if we can have him sit on something?
yes. So I would actually be asking for the relaxation protocol on a leash and do a constant rate of reinforcement, whether the outside is visible or not. If you already have to take the extra step of grabbing a hold of him so someone could leave, I would do the leash and I would start engaging him in a training activity and have that toy readily available to toss into his face if you need to.
Okay. So
because we want to, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. The toy is like a kind of like a last ditch effort to just make sure that you don't get bit. It's something else.
Yeah, if you notice that his arousal level has gone up, I want him to have the toy so he has something appropriate to put his mouth on and engage with, and not look for something else near him to latch onto.
Okay. I think.
In the ABC log that is in the Google Drive folder, if you guys want to print that off and just like make notes on it, or you can type it directly in and save it and just do one for each week. Anytime that you have an incident in the front door, take a few minutes to describe it. Same with the bedroom and what it is, so we can see if there's like any sort of pattern, time-wise, time of day, weather out, what was going on, that seems to add a little bit more outside of just the cats being there. And then that way we can track it, and then if we're tracking it, we can actually better address it.
Okay, so what would you say isn't like enough of a reaction to write it in that log? Because I was starting with that, and then I realized like I feel like I'm writing down every time he just barks out of a window, and I didn't really know like
if he reacts to something, barking, lunging, growling, or super anxious response, and he doesn't redirect within 2 prompts, it needs to go in the book. If he puts his mouth on anybody for any reason, it needs to go in the book. If you can't get him to de-escalate and he's like pacing, whining, but not necessarily barking, lunging, reacting, it goes in the book.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, like anything where it's like, oh, he just happened to bark at a squirrel, but I asked 1, 2, 3, or I called him and he immediately redirected and came back over. Perfect. That doesn't need to be written down. I mean, you can, and you can say like, look, I triumphed, but then you might be doing that all day long.
Okay, gotcha. All right, we'll do a better job with that then.
It's the bigger things that we're struggling with that I like to put down on those logs so that we can identify them data track them and then address them. Sometimes we're addressing 2 or 3 things at the same time. Sometimes it's just one, until we're moving that out and it's no longer being recorded because it's not an issue, and then we tackle the rest of it.
Okay.
Good job.
I think that machine is coming back and he's taking notes.
He can hear it.
Yeah.
And so you can also, if he seems to be a little bit, because he got a little bit tense, but his tail's still neutral, his ears are still neutral. If you notice that tail pop up, because that seems to be one of his little things when he gets wound up, that tail goes from being below neutral or at neutral to above neutral. So if you happen to see that tail pop up, I would throw a handful of food on the ground, let him scavenge for a second, and then retreat 5 feet, and then do it again, and then go back and forth between those piles.
Okay. See back there, that big tractor is coming down.
Yeah.
I know you were talking about, yard work and stuff, but it's been pretty cold, and I didn't know if anybody would end up out here this winter. I was thinking this might be a good opportunity.
Right, exactly.
They cut this cow corn pretty late here. Good.
Our hay out here sucks so bad, like everywhere. It's so horrible.
This year hasn't been good for anybody, I don't think. I mean, we got a bunch of hay, but it's all really, really dusty.
Yes. Jake, come here. Hey, Tapal. Yeah, it's dusty, and we get clay and like crappier quality hays out here. And I said, I haven't had to soak my hay for like 2 years, and I'm having to soak my hay now. Jake.
Yeah. Yep. Our horses have been coughing, even with it being moistening it and stuff. Good boy, Cody. I mean, it is like right here on the road. Normally, he'd be flipping out if he were
That's
inside.
okay. This is our goal. You need a nail trim. You're digging into my pants, man. You're the only one that can reach it. Sit down. You stay. Sit.
Back. Shuffle.
Shuffle. There you go.
Good job.
And I would scatter.
Scatter. Good job, Cody. Yeah, I mean, this truck is over here unloading. It's pretty loud. And he's not even paying attention to it right now.
And we might only do this for like another minute or 2 before bringing him in, just because he is doing so well, and we want to make sure we end on a positive note.
Yeah.
Because sometimes pushing them a little bit further is too much. See, his tail is popped up. It's still below neutral, but it keeps popping back up when he looks over there. Not every time, but it's done it a couple.
Yeah, probably if we weren't doing so many treats, he would get to the point where he started lunging.
Yep. And it's almost, for him now, it's a pattern behavior that it's more reinforcing to bark and lunge and growl at those things than it is to do something else, which is why we have to be so heavy with the treats when we start. Or treats and toy, any sort of reinforcement. Good boy, Jake. Good boy. Cody's like, I got this.
Good job, buddy. Yeah, I think he got too many scraps over the weekend.
His tummy got upset.
Oh, yeah. And I don't even think it's quite back to normal yet, but he's way better than he was yesterday.
Do you guys have any slippery elm?
Any what?
Slippery elm?
I'm not sure what that is.
It's a powdered supplement that you can actually add to their food that helps resolve diarrhea and like loose tummies for dogs that have a lot of gastric issues.
Where is that on Amazon or Chewy?
You can get it on Amazon and on Chewy. Like my Great Danes, like they could breathe the wrong air and automatically have diarrhea. And so they get slippery elm at almost every meal. And their poop has been perfect since we started doing that. Every once in a while I have to do some charcoal, but.
Do you think you could send me the link to the one that you recommend?
Yep.
Cool. because that definitely would be beneficial for him because he does have a really sensitive stomach. You know, even on like normal days, sometimes it just gets like runny and I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, almost every time we go get dog food, we have to try something different because he's just not that into anything.
And you know, I think if we maybe switch him a little bit onto contra, because this dog right here is like, he doesn't eat food from a bowl. He just has no interest in it whatsoever. And he doesn't even necessarily want it as a treat. But if I take it, because he'll eat like every 3 days, like he does not eat like a normal dog anyway. But if I take it and I put it into a food puzzle, or I give him something that he needs to engage in order to get the food, he'll eat it.
That's really interesting.
So some dogs just really like contra freeloading. And so it might be a situation where we need to put some of his food into our training and just use it that way.
So maybe I'll try what you were saying with like recooking it and put it on the licky mats and stuff.
Yep. And then you just take whatever amount you're using that day out of what he would get in a bowl. And so he still has choice access where he doesn't have to work for his food, but he can if he wants to.
Our vet told us that shuffle. Our vet told us that he should be getting about like 3 cups a day. Does that sound right? He's about 50
It depends on
pounds.
the food. So there's some foods that you like really don't need a whole lot of, and there's other foods like we had my dogs on Canax, which is a really high protein dog food, my Danes. And when we had them on that until like the middle of the pandemic, because then nobody could get it anywhere, it was awful. They were eating like 7 cups of food a day. And so I had to switch them onto Purina Pro Plan, large breed vision and health or whatever. And they now eat, one of them eats 14 cups of food a day and the other one eats 12.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, the amount that they need for the caloric intake of the dog is really going to depend on the energy that they expend during the day and the energy that the kcals that they consume in their food, what that particular food's ratios are.
Okay. So the more active he is, the more he eats. It's kind of like humans.
But, yeah, and it's not necessarily the quantity of food, it's just whatever, because if you look at the bag, it'll tell you what the kcals are per cup. So you can actually do the math and figure out how sedentary your dog is and what where their kcal needs are and where their weight needs are. Do they need to gain weight, lose weight, maintain weight? And then you can actually ration out that food based on that amount.
Okay.
It's, they put like a general guideline on the bag of how many cups, but I have clients who their dogs they're very anxious dogs. And so they're constantly like reverberating energy, even when they're not necessarily moving. And so they need to eat triple what the bag tells them to in order to consume their kcals. Whereas I have some dogs who can look at the bag and get fat. And so for them, they're not on their amount required, based on their size. So I would back up and scatter.
Yeah, he's getting pretty.
Yeah, and let's end it here and just walk in and take him inside, make it a big deal, like jog up to the house, tell him, good job, good boy.
There you go. Is the door open, Chris? This is not. Oh, we have to go all the way around.
Right.
Good boy, Cody. Okay. All right, swap around. Cool.
So when we're out here and you have these opportunities, just start engaging like this. Let me know if they arise, and if I'm free, we'll jump on and do one of these. So we're getting more real life scenarios for stuff around the house, because ultimately that's one of his main struggles is with just people in the wild, essentially. And so we want to make sure that we address that. And he's learned a lot of these skills already in the barn with things that were triggering him. So now we're just going to have to and he still needs to work there too, but he needs to have more opportunities to engage with things that make him uncomfortable in a broader scope. Okay,
cool. So, so then when we have a good opportunity like this, will that just be like our week session then?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we'll still we'll do our constructive work in the barn because we can control it. We've got, I mean, unless you want it to be, but we'll do our constructive work in the barn where we can build those skills. We can keep working on things and get him to the point where he's just really comfortable in there. And we'll work on any opportunities we have like this as additional time, because ultimately when you live rural, you have less opportunities. It's not like I have when you're living downtown LA and I'm like, cool, go stand outside your door.
Yeah.
Because like there's 500,000 things that are there. Or like I have a client who just moved from Oakland to Sunnyvale and she had tons of problems with her dog. Mind you, we solidified most of them in her apartment in Oakland. They moved to Sunnyvale, 0 problems.
Oh, wow.
Because the dog's not, one of his main triggers is one that we couldn't address. We could literally only manage. And it's like they have a parking garage where like the parking garage is like they are in Japan, where like you type in your code and like this machine gets your car and like takes it down the car elevator. But you can walk into the car elevator and take your car out before it's fully like set down.
Well, that's really interesting.
And so people are in a hurry and they hit the fire sprinkler that sticks out when they're taking their cars out. And it sets off the fire alarm for the entire building.
That's brutal.
And this dog has noise related reactivity and redirection. And it's like, they told them like this is happening so frequently that like we can't function, we can't do our jobs. And so they were able to break their lease. But like I had to kind of be realistic. Like this wasn't something that we had even discussed because it wasn't happening until they installed this machine halfway through our training program. And I'm like, we can't address, this is not something that we can address, like going out for the potty, or we can't manage this. Like this is something where we have to, Kirk, leave it and come here. Thank you. Oh, look at all you guys. We have to make sure that, you know, we just prevent him from losing it. So the second it happens, cloth muzzle goes on, leash goes on, get him out, get him far away from people, even if it means that you're running him. They moved to their new house and their dog has no reactivity to anybody, is getting along with people because he's not constantly being flooded by this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Cody would murder somebody if that happened.
I mean, like I have to Paul, who's right. Well, I can't turn this around. She just ran that way. But my little Frenchie, and when we adopted her, she was like nuts. She saw other dogs and just lost it on the leash. And I'm just like, she loves other dogs, but she got so frustrated in the situation and the environment that she was in that she couldn't handle and cope with anything. And she was constantly being flooded by off-leash dogs running up to her. Yeah. And she's like, I don't know, 13, 14 pounds. So maybe a little more. She's gained some punch.
And that's the problem with them in in city areas too, because I mean, a lot of people just think it's okay to like leave their dogs off, you know?
And we have a big, Maddie's in here, right? William. Okay. We need to make sure like when we're in areas that we advocate for our dogs, because I live in a heavily retirement community where people say, oh, my dog's friendly. Yelling not friendly doesn't necessarily work. So I'm constantly telling people, scream out, my dog has mange. My dog's got the Rona. My dog has scabies. I'm like, throw something out. One of my clients yelled out, this is like 2 weeks ago, and I didn't even know how, I heard it, I knew it, I had started giggling, but like, it took a minute to process. He screamed, my dog has genital herpes as loud as he could. And the people who had their dog were like, come here, come on, come back here. I'm like, one of them ran up and just looked at him. So weird. Clipped their dog and walked away. And I'm like, because usually when you're saying my dog's not friendly and then your dog starts barking and growling, people engage in this whole, well, your dog shouldn't be in public and your dog should be at home. And it's like, no, this dog has a right to be outside just like your dog does. If your dog needs to be on a leash, you're actually violating their right to be in their space. But I'm always like, depending on where you live, bring a taser, bring citronella spray, bring like what are the baton sticks, like not police baton, but like the short break sticks. And I'm like, and have it available in case the worst happens. And the biggest thing I can say is preemptively, what stops people in their tracks is saying your dog has something seriously contagious. They might say your dog should be at home. Who cares? They're going to get their dog because they don't want a vet bill. They're like, oh my God, your dog's contagious. Don't come back here. And it's like, it works so much better than saying my dog's not friendly, because their innate response is, well, my dog's friendly. It's like, you're not getting it.
Yeah, some people think that just because their dog is friendly, it fixes the entire situation of your dog not being friendly. It's like,
yeah, and some
what's
dogs
inspiring in
aren't
your
even
brain?
friendly. They're just super obnoxious or overly intimidating. And so other dogs
Yeah.
don't want conflict and they avoid it like the plague. And they just think their dog is friendly. It's like, no, your dog is rude. You good?
Yeah, it's so true. So true.
All right. So text me for tomorrow. I think I have us at the same time that we were scheduled yesterday.
Yeah, I think 3:30 should work fine.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool.
All righty.
Okay, so
see you guys then.
Yep, see you tomorrow. Thank
All
you
right.
for doing this
Bye.
last minute.
No problem. He did great.
Good job, Cody.
Bye.
Thanks, Tabitha. Bye.